Well, it's another Monday. Sunshine outside, I'm glad to say. And sunshine in Donegal too, I'm sure, Pat. Is it?
No, actually, Jude, was sitting out about an hour ago, sitting out our back, and it was lovely, but it's starting to cloud over a wee bit. So, and as my dear missus said, there's an autumnal feel coming in.
I hear life is just one long soaking in of sun. Just a restless pursuit of
Jude,
pleasure.
one of the nicest things of having sort of a forest behind your house is the fact that there's no things looking at you as an animal.
Well, they say, a walk on the forest is supposed to have a certain, I don't know, some sort of feeling. It's like being washed in the ocean, that it kind of does something for you.
Isn't that where Neanderthal man, they didn't need shoes because the carpet of leaves and all that sort of stuff, and there was protection there. It was almost like the mother's womb.
Yeah. But they do say now that's sort of a therapy that people get, that they go into forest. You lucky devil. And besides, think of all the carbon that's been soaked up by your forest as well. You should be given a knighthood, at least, a papal knighthood.
Absolutely. Sir Patrick McGart.
Sounds well.
Doesn't it?
Your friends could refer to you as Sir Pat. Okay. Now, you have a quotation from a man called Brendan O'Leary, Dr. Brendan O'Leary. Now, most people, that will ring a bell because he's a man who has spoken on Irish affairs. He obviously is Irish himself. I think is he based in London?
No, he's now one of the top-notch professors in America. I think he's in the University of Pennsylvania, but he's highly regarded in academic.
Very much so. Very much so. So, do you have that? I mean, I've got the sentence, the first sentence.
I know you read it. I haven't got it.
Okay, the first sentence of his book is this: Unionist-dominated Ulster is now over. A referendum in the north on Irish unity is likely at the end of this decade, to be followed by one in the south, if the rules of the Good Friday Agreement of 1998 are followed. That is because Northern Ireland's tectonic plates have shifted. Its cultural Catholic population, those who are Catholic or come from a predominantly Catholic family formation, now outnumber cultural Protestants. Now, you feel that's an important statement to make?
Well, this O'Leary is a heavyweight, and he's not exactly known for his sort of throwing things out there without sort of fairly substantive research and all the rest. And I think the first sentence, the days of unionist dominated Ulster type thing are over.
Yeah.
Jude, that is a significant statement in the sense that, Jude, there's a tide running, and it's running one way. And all the different things that are happening, and you sort of say, where are we going? See, I sit down and I keep asking myself, Jude, what is the criteria that's going to be used to decide on, when this plebiscite about Irish unity, what's the criteria? When's it going to be used? Who's going to call it? And who's got the right to say yes, or who's got the right to say no? And the Irish government don't seem to be addressing it. The British government isn't addressing it. The Unionists are running away from it. And then when Sinn Féin brings it up, it says, "Oh, there they go again."
Well, I gather there are a lot of different. I read somewhere an article, and they listed the number of bodies that are now working on this question of Irish unity. I think we should really take sometime and talk about that. There's a lot of different bodies. There's one in the Dáil. There's Mayhall's shared island. There's all sorts of things that are on the go with groups of people. I'll tell you, I find that good and bad. Good that it's happening, but bad because it's almost like unionism splintered all over the place. All these wee groups, none of them necessarily talking to each other. And the other thing is, of course, are these self-elected groups or do they not open their doors and say, listen, if you have any good ideas, come and tell us, or whatever. I just have that feeling that it's not as organized as it should be, and that's to unionism's advantage.
Yeah, but I don't remember his first name, but there was a professor, I think his name is Nolan. He was a guy in about 2017 or 2016, somewhere around that, who said by 2021, he had done the sort of demographics, and he had worked out that by 2021, all it needed, I think, was 2% or something. of a switch, and the Catholics would be in a majority. Then I have referred to him a couple of times. Frank Curran was the editor of the Daily Journal before me, and Frank was involved with the old Irish Independence Party. And I remember he was absolutely fascinated by demographics because he had lived in an area, and he told me that in Derry, the Unionists used to even break up streets to ensure that they held control of certain areas. Like, Jude, when you work out in a city that was basically 70% Catholic, there were 12 Unionist representatives and 8 Catholic representatives on the city council. So demographics have always played a massive role in Northern Ireland. Now they're shifting. Are they going to play the same role?
I mean, you see, that's a question. I think maybe Brendan O'Leary answers this in his book. And incidentally, we don't know the title of it, but we'll have it by Friday with the help of God. But he doesn't. He just makes that statement that they're more Catholic. I don't think anybody would dispute that now. Not even the DUP.
There's
that isn't the end of the story.
Aye, but there was a graphic in the Irish Times to accompany that, Jude. I think I read it on Saturday.
Yeah,
and he was saying not only are there now more Catholics going to school, there are also the people sort of who are defining themselves as neither, and so on. And he says a lot of you even then you push onto that. A lot of the liberal unionists who no longer really care too much about the union, and of course the Brexit thing is all played into it. So he says a whole sort of a lot of factors have come into play that have sort of shifted the dynamics.
Well, I think he continued to talk about the tectonic plates and all that, and I tend to agree that there's probably more non-unionists in Northern Ireland now than there are unionists. But it depends on what these people are going to do. And many people say, and there's some signs they're right, that this new a significant part of this new non-unionist group will go to the Alliance, who are de facto unionists.
Yeah.
Because they are happy to settle with the president. See, that idea that we have now swelled the numbers so unionism is no longer in charge doesn't mean a damn thing, really.
No, that's true. There is sort of cultural Catholicism, but does that translate to cultural United Ireland?
Exactly. I think that's very important. And you may be sure that Alliance believes they have the wave of the future behind them of people who couldn't care less. Now, they might be converted eventually and maybe have to go from that stage of being a hardline unionist to being a softer Alliance person, and then eventually see the sense of a United Ireland. But that mightn't be the way. I think what people should be doing, instead of rubbing their hands and saying, oh yeah, the tectonic plates have shifted, they should be saying, what are the reasons we can give people to leave the UK? What is it about the UK that you don't like? Well, I mean, you talk to Mike Lynch for a few minutes. I guess you have plenty of reasons for wanting to leave the UK.
Absolutely, yeah.
And likewise, I think they should be given reasons to unite, that a united Ireland would make sense, because the trouble is, in the south of Ireland, they're having similar problems in terms of inflation, strikes, as they're having in England. Not to the same extent, but it looks like it's going the same way.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's good enough for us to be happy in the state that things have changed because we now have a non-unionist population. I think there's an awful lot of work to be done.
No. The reason I brought it up is O'Leary has a heavyweight reputation, and he has been involved for a long time. And the fact that he makes a bold statement like that the days of unionist domination are over. Now, Jude, I am 68, and that's the first time I've really heard anyone state it so bluntly, and those sort of terms.
Well, I suppose it's blunt. Well, I've heard people say it. I don't know. I've heard people.
No, I've heard
people saying it.
But Jude, usually it's an aspiration. This is a statement of fact by a heavyweight academic.
Well, I know Martin McGuinness used to say frequently the Orange State has now been dismantled. Yeah. But
I always think, Jude, what's happened is we all, but 19 or not 19, say about 10 years ago, we reached the top of the hill, with unionism. I think now unionism's gone down the other side of the hill now.
I think I read an article about this actually, but there's a case to be made for unionism feeling. I know what it was. It was a dissertation. Maybe it was an MA or a PhD dissertation. I get these things sent to me. And I looked at the sort of abstract of it, and the guy said that the sense of loss in unionism began in the 80s with the Anglo-Irish Agreement.
Yeah.
It was that sense that things are beginning to slip away from under them. Okay, they got Articles 2 and 3, sacrificed, but there was that sense now the South had a right to be involved or interested in what was happening in the North. Now, that was something they always didn't want to hear. They were adamant, this is an internal UK problem. The Anglo-Irish Agreement, which many people didn't like, it gave that foothold to the idea that there was the South had a stake in this.
Yeah. I remember talking to Seamus Malm way back in probably a month or two after it signed. And I actually said, Seamus, I've read the blinking thing, and I'm no historian or whatever. But I said, I've read it and I can't see anything why nationalists should be jumping for joy. He says, no, I agree with you. But he says, it's the opportunity that things will change now. With the acceptance of the fact that there was a rule for Dublin.
Maybe like Michael Collins said, the freedom to
get freedom. Yeah.
We saw how that one worked out.
So
don't get carried away. I think I think there's generally a good sort of sunny feeling among people who are nationalists, but I think it's too vague. I think it's too disparate. There's too many bodies beavering away, or maybe not beavering away. There's bodies that pretend to be doing something like Micheál Martin's shared island thing, and really nothing in it. I think it's time that somebody took this thing took this bull by the horns and said, look, we've got to have unified pressure to achieve a border poll. Let's get organized here. Let's see what needs to be said and researched or done, and then present that to the British government or whoever is necessary to be presented to, and then let's go from there. I'm just in my old age, I'm getting impatient with people who talk about things in general terms. Practicalities, Pat.
Practicalities.
I'm a practical man. I've always been a practical man. My wife doesn't agree with that, but that's true. Okay. Well, we'll be able to dig out, will we, the O'Leary's book title by next Friday?
I should have written it down, actually. It was an article in the Irish Times on Friday. By the way, it's a very big, long title, and I think there's a question mark at the end of it, if I remember correctly.
Oh, God. Don't like the sound of that.
Don't like the sound of that either.
Okay, let's move from that to the happy topic of the DUP themselves.
Yeah.
Now, you are of the opinion that there could well be that the DUP will go to the polls again.
Yeah, Jude, I'm a frequent user, of social media, and I sit and read some, at night when I get bored. There's nothing on telly, and I read for a while, and then I go to social media. But one of the things that keeps cropping up, I've noticed recently, are the number of people who are saying, look, wait a minute, here we are, we've got a inflation ballooning out of control. Mm-hmm. We have a massive energy crisis. In Northern Ireland, the health service is on its knees. There are no GPs. The DUP are hanging out this thing about the protocol. There's even an article, I think, at the Belfast Telegraph over the weekend, says it's absolutely working first class. The imports from the exports, I think, and imports from the south are up 23%. The exports to the south are up 42%. It's working. And yet the DUP are hanging out this waiting until Liz Truss or whoever it is gets elected as the Prime Minister. And they're not interested in the least in going back into power. And one of the people that I thought was, Jesus, quite a few are saying, what the DUP are waiting for is they want to bag something big in the protocol, have another election, and say, look, we have got this, and say to their section of the community, vote for us again, and we're back in as First Minister.
Right, okay.
The claim is that they are serious, that psychologically, they cannot deal with the fact that a Sinn Féin person could be the First Minister.
Well, I know they're obviously finding that a hard one. But if they go and say, well, we've got this concession, we've got this bit carved out of the protocol, so it's not a severe protocol, if the protocol is good for business, wouldn't it be obvious to people that anybody who carves out a chunk of it is going to be doing damage to business here?
Yeah, but that term, I never quite understand it, identity politics. But identity politics, and there are some people in the unionist community, the Jamie Brysons and the Jim Allisters, who I think are not in the least bit interested in economics whatsoever. As long as they can claim to be British and put on their bowler hats and fly the Union Jack, they don't give a monkeys if they have to eat grass.
Exactly. Funny. I had that same term in mind. Eat grass. It was written down here, actually. Well, I mean, that's not what you call the most imaginative political policy to have. Do you think that the DUP could get a concession that would look like it was doing business a favor and persuade enough business people or people in trade that it was a good idea?
Jude, I don't see how they can, but like I am not an economist, but one of the things that having
steel.
a foot
steel, they say steel.
Jude, by the way, I listened to somebody on, I think it was Stephen Farry on last Friday. There's an import on steel or a VAT on steel of 25%. But he says that's got nothing to do with the Northern Ireland Protocol. That has to do with the deal between the GB and the EU. And he says even if the protocol comes along, Britain would still have to negotiate with Europe about that one.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what will happen. Maybe they'll find something for the UK government will find something for the DUP that actually isn't part of the protocol, but they can pretend it is. Yeah. And some sort of, goodies. And that'll allow Jeffrey to go to the people and say, look, we play hardball and we got this now. That's everything's okay. We're back again.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think it makes any sort of sense at a time, and this is real crisis time, the electricity bills and the gas bills are absolutely astronomical. Wait until you have to put on your heating 10 hours a day or there's snow on the ground. And they're talking about up to the heating bills being $4,000. And somebody told me there quite recently, you went into a shop and bought something due to making the figures up. And last week, the week before, it was £3.50. It's now £4.20. And he says, wait a minute, 80 pence or something. And he says, in the space of a week. And by the way, it was something like £2.30 or something a year ago.
The stuff that's going up quicker than that, even. I can't say what it is exactly, but I've seen figures of 50% and 80% increase in the way things are now compared to what they were a couple of months ago. So there's no doubt about it that inflation is really putting us up against it. There's so many factors coming into play. There's COVID, there's Ukraine, there's Brexit, there's the balls up, frankly, that the Tories have made of things and the DUP. So that a combination of things are going to hit the economy, and God help the rest of us, we'll have to solve them, or will we?
Well, I read recently, there's a New Zealand professor, I think his name is Richard Patman. Yeah. He said that Brexit has already cost Britain more than their entire contributions from someone like 1990 to 2020 or 2016 to the EU. It's already cost them more. If he is correct, Jude. By the way, the other thing, remember our friend Emily Maitlis said, we forgot to mention it on Friday, she said within 5 minutes you could get 60 economists who would say that Brexit has been a bad deal. And she said you could spend hours looking for one, to come on and sort of say it's been a good deal. So she says that and she says this was the balance that the BBC were sort of, she says was ridiculous. So Jude, when's the penny going to drop?
Well, you see, I have some sympathy with the Tories even, because they wanted Brexit. And the reason they wanted Brexit, they said, was, well, of course, they could go to the sunny uplands and they'd have all the trade in the world, right? But the other reason was they were make their own laws, that they were at present subject to decisions made in Berlin or in Brussels. Sure. And I would have sympathy with that. As I understand it, there are, I think the Irish people in the South should know that the Brussels has got a very firm hold on what happens in the Irish economy.
Yep.
And whether it survives or whether it's supported or what. So maybe the price for the economic thing is too high if it involves your sovereignty. I think I would sympathise with them. I think what I would be more sympathetic though if the Brits were prepared to look the thing in the face and say, yes, we definitely want to have a degree of autonomy, but we're prepared to make trade deals, not courts of justice sitting and making decisions for us, but doing trade deals. In other words, the EEC as was. I think that would make a lot more sense. But the two seem to be lumped together. If you're either with a diminution of your sovereignty, and the super state of the EU is looking to produce, and it is looking to produce that, or you're somebody who's going to go for Brexit and, to hell with it.
I think wasn't it originally that started out they were going to stay within the customs union, and then they decided. Then they went for the hard line Brexit, pull everything out, and so on. So, Jude, you don't know what's going to happen. But the whole thing, Jude, as you say, it's a bit of a perfect storm, and where it's all going to end up, and the war in Ukraine, without question, has absolutely tipped over the apple cart.
Yeah. I think, I'll confess, when Brexit happened, I never thought in terms of separating the question of sovereignty from trade, because the Tories somehow or another lumped the two together. They said they put the sign on the side of a bus, and at the same time they talked about how getting our freedom back. And Nigel Farage says this is Freedom Day. So they lumped the two things together, and that was a pity. And maybe people who were Remainers should be pointing out the possibility that you still could be maintaining Brexit in terms of sovereignty, but that you could do a big trade deal with single market. Be a member of the single market, and not allow that to infringe on.
No, but you see, a lot of the Brexiteers, they don't want. There's an old thing. We used to rule the world, and we're not taking those Frenchies and what those krauts telling us what to do. It's got nothing to do with logic or economics or anything. It's some sort of old colonial mindset, and Jude. The wee guy whose name I always forget, wee fat Francois or something like that. He was on one morning and he says, "My dad fought the Germans in the Second World War, and they are not going to, in 2019 or whatever it was, they are not going to tell us what to do." And I was thinking, that's insane.
When she saw Trust the other day, where she made the slip, well, I don't know if it was a slip or not, when she was asked about Macron, she says, "Oh, the jury's still out on him."
Yeah.
These are the people that they're trying to cultivate good relationships with. That they're supposed to be a member in NATO and so on. And she's, tossing out this statement where, not so sure about this fellow Macron. I think.
There's an arrogance and an ignorance there that's actually depressing.
Yeah, it's that sense of entitlement that's very hard.
Yeah.
Well, listen, will we move on to the next item, which is closely connected to the one we're talking about? And that is, people are saying, well, okay, Boris is gone. Truss will almost certainly be leading the Tories, but is Boris gone permanently, or is he lurking in the wings? What's your own sense of him, Pat?
Rory Stewart had an article in the Guardian. Remember Rory Stewart? Rory Stewart. He was an odd-looking wee guy, very
weird looking. Very weird. He looked like a character in a Dickens novel. I always thought.
Yeah. But he's a former army officer.
He's a spook. He's a former spook.
As a former spook.
I read that somewhere.
It's probably true. But during the race between Boris and him for the Tory leadership, he came across as the actual voice of reason.
That's right.
The guy who was reasonable, who was fair, who came across. And he says what Boris has done, he says, has been deeply, deeply shameful. And he regards Boris as dangerous. But he comes out with an absolutely brilliant line in the same article. He says, Boris has not gone away, He says, Boris, a lot of guys are now, because he got such a big, 80+ majority in the last election. And he says a lot of them are now getting rid of, they see Liz as a disaster. They see the party sliding down. They have not been ahead in the polls since December, I think, 2021. And he thinks that somewhere along the line, buyer's remorse will set in, and they will want Boris back. In other words, he'll do a Imran Khan or Berlusconi. By the way, Jude, I love the fact, but Berlusconi is 85. And apparently there's an election come up in Italy, I think it's in November. And apparently he intends standing again. Now, Jesus, at 85, it's unbelievable. But here's the thing. Can you imagine in Britain a prime minister coming back like Boris to popular acclaim?
Well, let's go back for a moment now. As I remember it, Pat, you said that Berlusconi was not only going to come back politically, but that he had lost none of his potency.
No.
Can you explain that part?
There was a great article about him there quite recently. One of his girlfriends, she's only in her early 20s, and she is absolutely stunning. And I'm going, if he's 85 and she's his girlfriend, I'm going, there's something wrong in the world.
Well, you've heard that power is a great aphrodisiac. So
oh,
money, of course.
Absolutely.
But okay, let's pass over this nubile nymph that he's with at present. The scenario is several steps in Britain. One, that Truss will get elected. Two, that Truss will screw up. What do you think of, well, do you believe either of those two? Would you give a yes to both those?
Yes, like Jude, I think we touched on it on Friday. She has only, what was it, 50 out of the 337 Tory MPs voted for her in the original round, and in total, I think when she got about 31% finally. Sunak was way ahead of her from the MPs. She is also weak on the point that she hasn't won a general election, so she has neither the country nor the MPs on her back. Plus the fact she's got Penny Mordaunt and Michael Gove and Boris Johnson and all those people waiting for her to fail. And I think she will. Jude, I don't think she's got the skill set to handle what's coming down the track at her.
We've got that far. We've got the fact that she'll probably be elected, the leader, and secondly, that she'll probably screw up. I think both those are distinct probabilities, actually. Now, if that happens, the Tory party will be looking for a leader. I don't think it's anything like impossible that Boris Johnson would come back, because what will people remember of Johnson? They'll remember when he left, the way he did it with style. A certain degree of style. I mean, hasta la vista, baby, for the moment. And they remember that when they forget the reason that they had to go. They'll have a sense that he was ducking and diving, but the hell with that. That's politics. And this guy delivers votes. He's a vote magnet.
Yeah.
And that in the end is what matters in politics. Can you get the votes? If you can't get the votes, you're a waste of space.
Yeah.
So, I see it's absolutely possible. And his model, remember, is Churchill, and Churchill came back.
Yeah. But you think, Jude, he left under such a cloud that he had done so many things. He had lied to the Queen. He illegally tried to prorogue Parliament. He made a deal with the EU, and we were going to break it in a small, specific way. In other words, we're going to murder you, but we're only going to murder you in a specific way.
Pat, do you think that the average Tory MP, or even the average Tory member, would be shocked by that?
Not in the least.
No, they'd balance that against what this guy got going from. And there's no doubt about it. Johnson, when you think of Johnson alongside Truss, for example, or even alongside Richie Sunak, he has an energy. He's got jokes by the bagful. He's obviously a vote winner when it comes to the crunch. He can make a laugh out of the opposition. I mean, if you're faced with a situation where the guy who's going to go up against a revived or returned Johnson was going to be Keith Starmer, it'd be a walkover. Johnson would sail right through.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't dismiss it at all. I think it's quite possible.
Yeah. Obviously, the Tory party, there's that thing that we never get. I met quite a few English people, and there's some sort of thing in them. They love their army. They have this, and they love their law and order and policing. And they've got this thing, Jude. I don't get it. Almost this forelock tugging towards the ascendancy and the upper classes that I don't get. And Jude, that's our weakness when we come to understanding the Brits. They have a deference for authority that I just don't get.
But you see, Pat, you're a bit of a rebel. I'm a natural four-lock tugger. At least when I had hair, I was definitely a four-lock tugger. I think many Irish people are like that too. It's kind of nice. People like the Italians, for example, or Hungarians or Poles. There's a tendency to be attracted by the strong man, the man who says, "I'll solve your problems. No sweat, don't bother." And if he's got some charisma, that's a very seductive sort of an appeal.
Yeah.
So, don't
Ian Paisley had that told the
that's right, the same
people,
thing. Same thing.
Donald Trump had it. Boris Johnson has it.
Yes, I'm telling you, it's very powerful.
And a certain Adolf Hitler had it.
I'm almost tempted to take a bet with you that Johnson will be back. But I
know some. I wouldn't take that bet because I sort of half agree with you.
Okay, we've only about 4 minutes left. So I want to go to a final thing, and that is the fact that there's Pascal Donohoe, the Minister for Finance in the South, has said that he will help the people who are threatening strike. That's the Gardaí, the teachers, I think the civil service maybe as well.
Yeah.
And that he will give them an extra 1% increase in their salaries. Now, do you think that's going to wash with them?
Not a hope in hell. Jude, the last day they were, I think I mentioned it before as well. I read a young doctor. He was on one of the. He said he was in an induction course in Australia. I think it might have been Sydney, and he said when he looked around, there was 10 people in the room. 8 of them were Irish. 8 of the 10 doctors. So, and he said back in Ireland, he was working 60 hours a week and still couldn't afford the rent of a house in Dublin. He's out wherever it is, back again Sydney, I presume. He says he's working something like 42 hours a week. He's off regularly. He knows when he's going to be off. The working conditions are so much better, and he's so much better paid. Jude, the other thing as well, I have a young niece who was a teacher, and she told me Richard Bruton, when he was during the recession about 2008, 2009, he brought in this dual scale thing for teachers. So my niece, she happened to be in the year before, and she was earning $7,000 a year more than the guy who was doing the exact same job as her, who came in the year after. Now, Jude, no wonder most of our teachers are now voting with their feet. They're in Dubai. Like I have another niece. She's out in Spain. She's in a language school in Madrid, and so on. They've all decided to opt out. Jude, my son is a vice principal of a school, and he says they're having serious trouble now recruiting teachers.
I can imagine. The thing is this, though. Is this tendency where people are so pressed in terms of their finances that they can't get a house, they can't afford to heat it, they can't afford to even buy food? It's exactly the same thing in Britain, only more so. Is that a sign that the unions are going to make a comeback and be real? Mick Lynch is a hugely popular figure throughout Britain.
Yeah.
So if you had the equivalent of Mick Lynch in Ireland, do you think it's possible that people in their desperation will say, look, if we all don't stick together, we're all doomed because I just can't pay my way? Do you think it's likely?
I think there's absolutely no reason to think that unions aren't on a back big time. Dude, there was a principal on Dublin there quite recently said he can't get teachers because they're all moving out to various places to live cheaper and so on. Dude, the corporate world, as profits have never been higher. There have never been more millionaires and billionaires. The CEOs are earning sometimes about 200 times what the average worker. The system has been rigged by a long time. It's time it changed.
Of course it's time it changed. Do you think people like Mick Lynch and strengthened unions are going to do that?
Yes, I think that there's all. What is it Shakespeare said about affairs in the tides of men, or there comes a tide in the affairs of men. You read, but Jude, there's a lot of things.
Julius Caesar said that men readily believe that which they desire.
Yeah, but Jude, it's also happening. I think when people are, Jude, when you're in a full-time job and still have to go to a food bank, I don't think you'll be voting Tory at the next election.
True. Okay, we're out of time, Pat. I tell you, do you ever get the feeling that you're glad you're retired?
Oh, absolutely, Jude. I really do.
Isn't that a terrible thing to say? I'd be fearful of trying to live a life, and feed my family nowadays.
Yeah, when two people working still say they're struggling.
And some of them working 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat. Many
All the
thanks.
best, Jude. Good luck.
We'll have that book for our
Bye,
viewers
Freddie.
as soon as possible. Okay.
Hi,
All the
Jude.
best.